Well, hello everybody, welcome to day 13 of this daily vlog challenge. I am back in my favourite little spot, or that's certainly becoming my favourite little spot, and so I'm just below the Rising Sun Hotel and I am currently looking over the Malverns, and the valley is between me and there, so it's just really nice to just come down here and just get a bit of fresh air. And what's really nice is that I get quite a workout, because I get to chill out down here and then I get an absolute lung pumper getting back up again. But it's only about 10-15 minutes, 5 minutes, however fit I am. So I really do need to build up my cardio strength. I feel like I've done quite a bit of strength building, which is really handy when you're carrying a big rucksack on your back and other things to do with while camping and exploring the outdoors. However, just there's not really much I can do about my cardio at home. Laying on the ground, weaving my legs around in a exercising manner. So yeah, I feel like I'm a bit more limited to do cardio at home. I would really like to get a rowing machine because I've got orthostatic intolerance. So in other words, as soon as I start doing exercise that's standing, I have a lot less tolerance of doing that, and it creates a lot of stress on my body, so that's not ideal. So yeah, I do try to do things that are sitting down or laying down, and I do just find that way easier. I can go way longer when I'm doing that, I've noticed. So I do feel like the rowing machine, I feel like I can go on forever, but the issue is I do not have space in my flat for a rowing machine, so I don't think I am going to be getting one. But that would be ideal. I think if there is anything I could do at home that could give me an all-over workout without completely stressing out my body, that would be it. And I think this time I'm going to be heading this side. So I went over that way, but the sheep aren't over here. I'm not going to disturb them. Look at them all. They're all chilling out. They just sat down, really chilled. So that's nice. So yeah, I'm just going to have a sit down. I bought some snacks with me. I've eaten all my brownies, so I don't have any of those left. But yeah, just some fresh air, lovely view. Can't go wrong, really. So I've just had a really lovely chilled out time, just admiring the view and all the flies and weird waspy things. It's been lovely. All the sheep have sat down, look, they're all chilled out. And yeah, it's so still today that you can hear even the cricket being played in the valley down there at the bottom of the hill in Bishop's Cleeve. You can hear the trains coming up. Mad. It's just so lovely though. I am so glad I came out today. It's the first Saturday that I've been out in ages. Normally Fridays just do me in. And what's also really nice is that I've been able to identify all the different areas along here. It's quite difficult to do sometimes because you only have to have a little corner on a hill and it suddenly points you into a different direction. And so I'll show you here, hopefully it will. I need to get the screen on. So you've got the Malverns over here. What are you doing? What are you doing? Anyways, I've just pressed the screen and it all went a bit weird. over in the distance you can see the Malverns, and with the Malverns they're actually at a slight angle. It looks like they're very perpendicular or horizontal or whatever the word is, but actually they are heading a bit more that way. And so I was trying to work out where all of these areas are, and you can definitely see the Forest of Dean. I've used the compass on my phone to work out where everything is, and the Forest of Dean's there, and really in the distance I can see the Black Mountains. Pretty sure I can make out Hay Bluff, and I'm gonna get you one day. I broke my ankle there, so we have unfinished business. And as you scale up you can see the Malverns again, and I'm sure I can see the Shropshire hills in the distance over that way. I don't know what else would those hills in the distance, very distance, be that are in the north. They're not as majestic as, you know, the Black Mountains or anything, but I think in a way that makes me think they must be the start of the Shropshire hills. You really can see far, you can really see far. So I thought today, after all that waffle about where I am and the lovely views, I thought I would just touch upon some of the decision making that I make about whether I should get out or not, because as I just mentioned, I don't often get out on a Saturday because of what's gone on a Friday, because it's normally a busier day for me. And I just thought it'd be helpful, especially if you've got ME, to kind of understand how you decide yes or no on an activity. And so one of my biggest triggers of a flare-up is about pressure. So if I'm doing an activity and it has an excessive amount of pressure, that's something that I'm more at risk of then having some kind of burnout or, you know, something of that ilk. I don't like calling it an energy crash, but essentially that's what most people know it as. It's just I have days where I wake up and I just look like death is following me. So I think for me that's an overarching thing that I watch out for in any activity. How much pressure is this putting on my body? And that, obviously, if you're climbing up a hill, you could think, well, that is an awful lot of pressure, and it kind of is and it isn't. I think the fitter you are, the easier and the less likely you are to end up having an ME crash, because you're not putting yourself under that pressure, you're just putting yourself under normal stress, which is, I think, is an important aspect of life. I think I certainly feel a beneficial element of having a bit of, needing to have a bit of an oomph, but there's a real fine line between doing that and then ending up overdoing it and then ending up quite poorly. So an example being that the last time I had a real flare-up that caused the last one, so I've had a few months where it's been really hard work getting back in the swing of things, and the cause of it was a train journey. So I went to see friends for Christmas, and the journey on the way back I tried to make it as simple as possible, but there were just changes, cancellations, and I had to it was chaos. And it wasn't just because it was Christmas, because it was well after Christmas. It's just that particular train line up the centre of the country around Birmingham, the ones that go up to Crewe in that area, are just prone to having issues because they're going from long distances from Scotland to London, and so I just ended up with a heavy pack because it had all my stuff for Christmas and clothes and all that stuff. Was basically having to move quite quickly to other areas of the station, and I was already tired from seeing friends. It's just reality, and the added pressure of then running around a train station, it just finished me off. And it got to a stage where on the final train that I got into, the final train to Cheltenham, I got on the train and basically just slumped to the floor and just completely collapsed. And thankfully at that point it was a case of just staying there until I recovered a bit, and by the time I recovered a bit it was time to get off. So, but that's what caused my ME crash last time. So it's not normally just a physical thing. I normally find when it's companioned with a mental stress. So for example, in that example, it was the trying to work out how on earth I was not going to get stranded in the middle of nowhere. And these are all things that I could end up having in the outdoors, but I've just found I've never had that problem. I think there's an awful lot more control that I have over the adventures that I have, and if you've got the skills as well, I think that's also another top thing, that I have the skills to be able to get out and about. I don't feel stressed when I get lost because I know how to use a compass. The only thing I would say is using a compass and navigating does take quite a lot of my mental energy, and so for example, even when I did my Hereford trip, one of the reasons why I chose to do the Malvern Worcestershire Beacon Walk was because it's just a straight route up. There was no navigational stuff really required. You'd be doing yourself to get lost up there. Although I did find a couple that did manage to get lost. I'm not sure how, but I'm not going to judge because I think we've all been there. So that's a thing that I will think about when choosing a route or where I'm going. How much capacity do I have to work out where I am? Is that going to create an extra stress and add to the pressure? And quite often I think that in an emergency situation I could get myself out of a pickle. I think that's true. I think it's just that in that emergency situation there is a risk it would cause me to have an energy dip, crash, whatever, and I might end up being quite inactive for a few months, maybe more. So I try and avoid that, but it's the risk you take. It's whether you think, actually, do I want to enjoy the outdoors and push myself that bit further? But it's just having that risk, and we all take risks in whatever capacity we do in life. I think just stepping out the front door has its risks, so it's just about managing that. And I think a lot of health conditions are exactly that. It's just about saying, oh, what's the likelihood of this happening and what's the consequence going to be? So I hope that's helpful, a little bit of a discussion on how I decide whether something's manageable or not. And the reality is that if I get that wrong, it could have quite severe consequences, and because if I can't work, then that's not great. That has a massive impact on my financial ability to do fun things. So yeah, I think that sums up that. So I thought it would be helpful to talk a little bit about how I make the decision to even just get out the door, because I've talked about actually getting up hills and whether I decide whether to go wild camping, and making decisions on how far to push that, but actually most of the time at the minute, it's even just getting out the door is hard and can make me quite poorly. So an example being that about a month or two ago I decided, okay, I'm going to go to Morrison's today, get some food shopping, I'm sure I'm well enough to go, and I walked out my door and I got to the end of the road and I knew I was not on form. I thought, I'm going to have to really take this steady, and I thought, nah, I can do that. I can just take it steady, make sure my mental headspace is really chilled out, because that helps. But sometimes there is not, you can be as chilled out as you like in your head, but actually if your body's like, oh, I don't like this, I feel like there is sometimes, people talk about holistic. I don't think I could be any more chilled if I tried. So yeah, and I don't think I'm suppressing that. I just genuinely am quite a chill person. So when people say about how Emmy is a dysregulation, I completely understand that, and I would agree, definitely. It's just, I think in terms of management and actually whether I'm going to get out or not, I think having my head in a chilled place is only half of the battle, really. It just makes it worse. I'm more likely to not be able to do things, I think, if my body felt particularly stressed, as in like holistically stressed, whereas I find that I can chill out myself quite easily. I think it's just because I've had quite a lively life and I've seen all sorts of things, and so I can contextualise and have perspective quite easily, so I don't get stressed by the small things, and I think that's just really helpful. But trying not to get sidetracked there, it's an important point, but I think I'm trying to talk about how I actually make the decision, aren't I? So I think in that story of going to Morrison's. I got to Morrison's, did some shopping, and then I had to use the self-checkout, and those things absolutely fry my brain. Don't ask me how or why. Those machines just cause me to... that would cause potentially an ME crash. And in fact, so I used that machine, and on my way out I collapsed outside of Morrison's, and had to get a taxi home. And I wouldn't say it had a massive impact on the days following. In that moment I collapsed and it wasn't good at all. But that's just an example of, I knew I wasn't firing on all cylinders. If I think about it, I knew that it wasn't the day to be pushing things. And I think the thing that pushed it over the edge was the that machine, the self-checkout machines. And so quite often in that situation, it was about me. I knew that I could do the shopping trip. I didn't have capacity for anything else. So if anything else was going to happen that was different to what I'd planned for, then that was the issue, I think, looking back. And so what I'm trying to do is at the minute try and work out, okay, well, this is my limit, and just make sure I drop it down a bit, so I've just got that extra capacity if it all goes a bit wrong. Or I don't mind if buses don't turn up, because you normally just wait for the next one. It's awkward and it's annoying, but I'm not in any danger or anything, so yeah, I don't mind that so much. So on the back of that, trying to reduce things down is really important. So I've got that extra capacity, but also so if I get out the door and I'm struggling to cross my road, there's a road that's about, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes away, and I have to cross the road to get to the bus stop. It's only a 5-minute walk. The 5-minute walk is fine, but I know that if I'm struggling to cross the road, to have the understanding or the coherence, to be able to move and to cross, that is when I'll turn back and go, no, not today, because I don't want to be run over by a car. And it's just a really helpful way of me going and assessing, okay, I thought I could get out, but actually no, not today. So I don't know if that's helpful, but certainly I think it's helpful to have a real, this is me pretty much, I won't say bed bound, but certainly flat bound, and I'm climbing a mountain. I think there's an awful lot of things in between that, for most people in life, I would say, but especially if you've got ME, there's that, I think at every level and every aspect of what you're doing requires quite a lot of thought and planning. And I tell you what, it really sucks. I really hate it, because I like a bit of spontaneity in life, and I think I almost have to plan for spontaneity. I do have some spontaneity, but I just have to know that I've got the limit of that. And I miss that. I miss just being able to go, okay, I'm gonna go somewhere today, and off I go. And you know, for example, I'd go for a run, and I wouldn't know how long I was going to be away for. I'd be able to go for a run, see how far I get, and then be out like 12 hours and then come back. It wouldn't have a massive impact on my life. I cannot imagine myself doing any activity for 12 hours. Even I can't even do 12 and a half hour shifts at the minute. There's just, the things that I did in my 20s are just completely unrealistic at the minute. But I'm really grateful that I did all those bonkers things when I was younger. I really have made the most of every part of my life, and I think that's one reason why I don't feel so grouchy about the fact that today all I've really been able to do is to go out and sit on a hill. I mean, I'm sat on a hill looking at lovely sheep and a nice view. I mean, life could be an awful lot worse, couldn't it? So, but yeah, I would rather be chasing that Hay Bluff mountain over there. It's not really a mountain. The Black Mountains just remind me of the Cairngorms, and I used to spend an awful lot of time in the Cairngorms when I was in my 20s. I would do a load of night shifts, and then because I'd done night shifts and you block your shifts, you'd have quite a lot of time off. And so I used to finish my shift, get the overnight coach up to Inverness, and then head into the mountains. And I don't know how I survived in many ways. I don't know what happened in my 30s where it just all went or my skills just disappeared, and my nerve. I don't think I've got the nerve anymore either. But I will definitely go back to the Cairngorms. There are too many places that I think I could get to quite happily. It's just the commitment and time and the finances and stuff. But I definitely, in the next year, I'm going back to the Cairngorms. But the Black Mountains remind me a lot of that. They're just, they're like the mini Cairngorms, I always think. I think people underestimate them quite a lot because they're not that dramatic, really. They're just huge plateaus. And I think people underestimate the conditions you get on a massive high plateau. And it's the same in the Cairngorms, except for they're just a bit bigger. That's the only real difference. But those Black Mountains are big enough. The amount of YouTube videos I have seen of people deciding, planning a route and thinking, oh, this will be easy, and then they get halfway round and they go, oh my word, this is relentless and brutal. It is. I mean, you try and walk a few miles with the wind literally blasting you're heading into the wind. That will knock you out. I'm looking at them going, oh, I want you. I really miss that environment. I love it. But I think what people do is they don't plan their walk for the wind direction. So if you're going to go and do a horseshoe, you want to make sure you've got the wind carrying you back. And I think a lot of people, for some reason, try and walk into the wind. They walk and they think it's okay, and then on the way back they're walking into the wind, and so they get halfway and go, stuff this. And the amount of videos I've seen where people have come off the hills and there might be a little path or way you can get down, but then you're going over farmers' fields and you're jumping over barbed wire, and I'm sure some farmer really wants you jumping around his fields, because it is rural, but it's quite managed as well, especially in the valleys. You've got a lot of farmland, and I don't want to be in that position where I'm getting halfway and going, oh my word, I've taken on way more than I can chew here, and then there's not really a way out that's safe, really. Yeah, you can go through farmers' fields and whatever, but personally that's not my idea of a good day out. So I think my advice is, if you are going to go into the Black Mountains, just don't underestimate them. They will blow your soul away, and for me that's perfect. It's just, I think for me, I think I've mentioned it before, the walk in to the Black Mountains from public transport is just a bit too much for me at the minute. I'd probably need to do a walk in while camp and then come out again. But I've just had some funny memories while camping in those places. I don't think I was in the actual Black Mountains when I had paratroopers almost land on my tent. I think that was further in to Wales. I've walked around and I've had a look at the topography, and I've had a look at some YouTube videos, and I thought, no, that's not where I wild camped. And I'm wondering, I definitely in my 20s went wild camping that way, and I think because there is that everyone thinks the special forces will train that area, and they do, but I don't think it's as, I don't know, I think they'd be a bit mad to go there and train, and if it's so populated. So I think I decided to go further into Wales, and I think that was my error. I think I should have just stuck with the Black Mountains areas that I knew. But anyways, yeah, I had in the middle of the night I heard a what was it? It wasn't an aeroplane, it was a really still night, and I heard a load of well, it's just a chopper. It was just a big helicopter in the distance. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. It was about 2 in the morning. And I was just laying there thinking, I don't know whether I like the sound of this. And then I just got this sinking feeling. I was like, I don't like this. And yeah, and then I ended up, I don't know how long it was later, but it was a good 5 minutes or 10 minutes later, however long it was, and the vehicle had gone. The vehicle of the sky had disappeared, and I just had this bad feeling, this pit of my stomach, and yeah, I ended up, I just suddenly heard these thuds, and I thought, oh no, and they were a bit rhythmic, as in there was quite a few thuds, and I felt it in the ground. I thought, oh no, there's paratroopers outside. And the thing is, it was so still that night that definitely they probably were quite far away, But I think if someone was to say to me, what's the most scared you've ever been in your life, I think that night really was up there. I was definitely completely inexperienced, even wild camping really, and the whole thing just completely terrified the soul out of me. I just had this vision that I was going to have a soldier or some man with a gun shouting at me through my tent, and all unzip, and I was going to be shouted at, because you're not really supposed to be wild camping in that area. You know, it's not a designated wild camping. It's not like on Dartmoor where you are allowed to be there unless it's live firing. That's not advisable. But yeah, so and it's funny because I had all these thoughts and feelings go through my head. I thought, oh, I've got a white bra, I could wave that outside and so they know I come in peace. And I just thought, hang on a minute, that's going to be like I've made a pop-up brothel in the middle of the Brecon Beacons. Nope, you just have all these strange things going through your head. And in the end, I think I decided I don't want them to think that I'm a fox and shoot me. So therefore, I just made myself look like a human, as in I went into like a star shape. So I thought, well, they must have night vision. They will know that I'm there. And but I didn't want them to think I was a fox. So I just made sure that I was in a, you know, a really nice area. A nice area, a nice position. It's alright, there's some people coming, so I'm a bit distracted. But yeah, so the Black Mountains definitely have some memories, but I will go back there and wild camp, but I need to think about it a bit more, and maybe I don't think I need therapy, but I definitely in my 20s that was an experience to behold. The other thing to say is, in the morning when I woke up from my interesting wild camp, when I packed up, I felt like my personal space had been violated, as in it was just a bit like, oh, I don't think they're still here. They clearly wouldn't be, but it was just funny. I just will never forget that feeling of packing my tent and looking around going, I hope there's no one here, like hiding. And as I walked out the field, there was this area that was, you know, I don't know how to describe it, where you have stones where you in the corner of fields, like where people come through, you'll often get some kind of erosion management. And there was a bit of I don't know, I can't really remember, but it wasn't all muddy, if that makes sense. It wasn't like ploughing through a load of mud, and so you could use a bit of stepping stones to get around to the other side of the field. And I just saw one lonely footprint in the mud, and I just remember going, that wasn't there the night before. I didn't dream what happened last night. And it's just funny. It's just funny. How did I end up in that situation? And I was quite nervous, to say the least. It was such a still night, and I had a skydiver's license at the time, so I did have some thoughts about, I wonder what canopies they're using, and also what else was I thinking about? Oh, and it was such a still night, I thought, gosh, no wonder I felt the ground, because if you don't have any wind, you actually have quite a hard landing. So I think that's the only reason why I felt the ground. They must have had kit with them. But that would explain why I felt the ground, because it was such a still night that I think that a good night to train. But I kind of wish that I'd chosen a different spot. I'm like, why would they skydive into a field with a woman in the corner? But anyways, it happened. It was an experience to behold, and it's made me think about my wild camping choices moving forward. And I do have a friend who I was chatting with, and he said he had a similar experience in the Surrey hills, all around Surrey area. It's like, gosh, these people traded all sorts of places. You wouldn't think in Surrey, oh yeah, I'm gonna get in the way of a paratrooper exercise. So anyways, definitely one to think about. I have met all sorts of experiences on my wild camping. I've, all sorts. It's good times. It's good to reminisce sometimes, and I will definitely be thinking about where I choose my spot for wild camping in the Black Mountains, that's for sure. But I think that's how I would, if I was going to go back to the Black Mountains, either I need to cycle in and then explore around, or or if I got back into trail running, I think possibly that's doable. But I'm just holding off that for a minute whilst I've had issues with my legs. So my legs swell up quite considerably and I get really a lot of pain in my muscles. And we were wondering if I had compartment syndrome, but I think what I have is just really bad shin splints. So that's stopping me from doing things on hard surfaces, having to think about my job and how that impacts my work, because obviously that's on hard concrete floors. So a lot to think about. So I think I've really waffled on today, not just about what I've how I manage and decide whether to get out or not. Basically, if I'm going to summarise, it's pressure is one of the things that I try and think about. How much pressure is this going to put on my body? Am I ready for that? And if I get to the end of my road, or even outside my door, sometimes I will walk to the bins and just know, no, today's not the day for me to be going to the shops or going somewhere. But I do sometimes find I need that tester. It's just sometimes working out what that tester is, and sometimes having a slower morning. So I think my battery ran out, and what I was saying was that sometimes I just need a chance to slowly get going, and sometimes that really helps. It means that I might have an afternoon where I've got a bit more oomph to do things. I think sometimes my body just needs a bit of time to adjust to just being alive and awake. That definitely is something that I have to look out for. But then there's other times when, the last few weeks I've had a good night's sleep. I do find that I wake up with a bit of oomph and I don't have to make those active, intentional choices to make the most of life and to do the tasks that I need to do in the day. And those are the days I definitely should be getting out and doing a mountain walk or something like that. But I think what I would need to do is make sure I have my everything ready so that I could just know what buses and trains to catch, and that I would know exactly what my plan is, and off I go. I think if I can get the organisation done before, that will really help me get out a bit more and make the most of the health that I'm having at the minute. But I really have tried to strip life back. I think since I've been doing this ME course with the Bristol ME service, it's been really important for me to learn way more about how to manage the condition, and it's much easier to do that if you strip back life to its bare minimum a little bit, so that you know that it's not the activities that you're doing that's going to cause the flare up, if that makes sense. You've got less variability, if that makes sense, and it's just been really handy. I do hope that's been helpful. Obviously I've done a lot of reminiscing today. It's been good fun doing that. I can't help but look at the Black Mountains and be happy. So I really am hoping to move that way. I feel like I live the wrong side of the Malvern Hills, and yeah. So to summarise, what am I going to summarise? I'm going to summarise that pressure is something that I have to watch out for, and if I get to the end of my road and I know that I can't cross this safely, that's probably when I go, no, today's not the time to get out. Or maybe if I've gone to the bins, put the rubbish out, and I feel absolutely lousy after, I'm like, nope, today is a flat day. So, but sometimes it's good to test. It's just knowing what that test is for you, and I'd encourage you to work out what that is, because I think it can be really hard to know what you're capable of when you've got ME, and you have my sympathy very much, because I know it absolutely sucks. And on that lovely note, that nice cheerful way to end, I will see you tomorrow.